So today we're going to replace this with this. This is the Victron Energy BMV-712. This is a battery monitor, and it is a combined, traditional display one, but also it's got the Bluetooth smart functions on. So you're able to then use your phone to effectively see what's going on with the battery banks. My biggest challenge with all of this is actually going to be navigating through Kingfisher's wires. There is so much of it, and over the years, because she's like 20 plus years old, there's been a lot of changes. None of this has been documented, and this is something which I need to go through to find out what's what. I'm going to show you that in a bit, because what you'll see is like the batteries aren't in the right configuration as far as I'm concerned. We've got all sorts of different types of gauge of wire which has just gone in over the years, and a lot of that is actually going to have to be replaced, pulled out, and done again. However, I'm not going to have the time to do that, because otherwise it'll take months and months and months to completely rewire this bolt. So I'm doing this as and when, and this actually with the battery monitor is the first stage in figuring out how everything is basically connected together. I've already had a good look around when I've been looking to repair other instruments, but it's quite obvious though that there's a lot of cabling which is either superfluous or needs to be replaced. So how do you install the monitor? This is the supplied example diagram from Victron Energy that shows a typical installation of the BMV-712 battery monitor. I'm using the example diagram as this is much easier to understand than the diagram I put together for Kingfisher. So what are we looking at? First, let's start with the battery connections. The battery negative and the connection to the bolt's negative ground are connected to the supplied shunt. The positive supply cable from the shunt is then connected to the positive domestic battery. There is an option to add a second positive connection to the starter battery, so the app and the display can also measure the voltage of your starter battery. Finally, there is a 10 meter UTP data cable that connects to the battery monitor display. The UTP data cable also provides all the power to the display too. It's a pretty straightforward setup, really. Now for Kingfisher, I had to sketch out what the battery layout looks like and figure out how I will connect the shunt and what their battery arrangement is. So this is how I'll be connecting the battery monitor. This diagram is just the start of mapping Kingfisher's electrics, as there is so much more I need to add to this diagram. My advice is, if you don't have a diagram for your boat, the sooner you start to make one, the easier it will be in the future to map upgrades or troubleshoot problems with any boat electrics. As you can see, the display is just, doesn't work, gone. So I'm gonna have to pull all of that out. So these are the batteries, and what we have is domestic 1, domestic 2, and this one here is domestic 3. This one here is the starter battery. So clearly what someone's done, they've added another battery to the domestic bank. I think this one was more for the windlass. This is the shunt that is used currently by the old battery monitor. And that's something that I'm going to need to replace and also figure out where the cable runs are. So, as you can see, lots and lots of wire, lots and lots of different connections over the years. And this is something which I really need to sort out and have a look at in a lot more detail as I replace instruments. So let's take a look there. So as you can see at the back, you can see the back of the old battery monitor. So I've traced the cable, so it goes from here all the way around, as you can see there. And then that threads through to what it looks like under here. So I'm going to disconnect this now, because there's obviously a live feed going to the display. We're going to switch off all power, because clearly we don't want to have any batteries active or any systems active, and I'm also going to switch off the mains power as well. Kobe, what do you think with all this that's been going on? What's been happening? Are you impressed? Yes? So are you happy now that we can monitor our batteries? So before I install everything in the right positions, I need to set up a quick test just to see that everything's working. So as you can see here, I've connected the batteries to the shunt, and I've also connected the UTP cable over to the display unit. And as you can see, the display unit's working fine. It's all there, it's all connected and all working. So with that in mind, I can get to work on installing the rest of it and tidying up the shunt and removing the old one. That's the new shunt in place. Amy, she's been doing all of the cabling, running the cable through, zip ties, and as you can see, what an awesome job she's done. And she's basically gone all the way through. Rather than configure the battery monitor via the physical display, I'm going to use the Victron Connect app via my iPhone via Bluetooth to set my configuration options. Now, this isn't going to be an extensive walkthrough of the options. There are other videos out there on YouTube that deep dive this stuff, and I really need to read the manual to understand half of what this thing can do. What you are seeing at the moment is the Victron Connect update process, as all the firmware needs to be updated before you can use the battery monitor. Now all the firmware has been upgraded, I need to do the initial configuration. I want to broadcast Bluetooth data. I'm selecting yes, as the broadcast shows handy icons under each device that provides an instant status of the device when I browse in the app. Next, I'm asked to enter the total capacity of the domestic battery bank. In my case, that's 360 amps. Then I'm asked about the auxiliary. The auxiliary is positive terminal B on the shunt. This is what I connected to the starter battery. Here, I also define the auxiliary as the starter battery. And that's all there is to it. Now I can see the status, history, and trends in my battery use. I will also be connecting my solar controller via the Victron Smart Network. This will allow me to see the effect of my solar charging. Okay, so that's the battery monitor installed. As you can see behind me, right there, fitted great. Luckily it went directly into where the old one was, so really pleased about that. And yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. So really pleased. I think the next thing we've got to do now is send the controller, the solar controller back, because there's been a problem with that for some reason, and unfortunately I've had to dismantle it all, and hopefully we'll get a replacement, and that will then connect into this, so it's part of the smart network. So I'll obviously record that when that happens as well. Anyway, thanks for watching. If this is something that you liked, please like, subscribe, and yeah, see you in the next video. Bye.